it be worth the trouble? I think that's the big question we all ask. So I'm going to just ask each of you, have you organized or had an outdoor learning day or days? And maybe just in the chat now, you can just quickly type a yes or a thumbs up or a something there just to say that if you have had an outdoor learning day, that we can have a look at that. Okay, that's great. Thank you. And now the next question. Or does that just sound like a crazy, messy, energy draining experience? And now I'm looking for some honesty. So if you can just answer in the chat there, if you're raising hands in the chat there too.
Again, Robyn, some of them are agreeing with you sometimes.
Good.
Some of them mentioned they've had outdoor play dates and some they're just saying crazy, indeed, quite messy. So okay. I think you're right.
Fantastic, great, thank you. Right, so let me start with what I think is maybe the best and the most important reason to plan a day, or preferably some days, where we engage outside, especially at this time in our lives. I think we would all agree that life at the moment is stressful and uncertain, and that fear forms part of everyday daily life. If not in our own minds, then certainly in people around us, and it's certainly fueled by what we constantly hear via media and via other people. Now, our children, this is just a picture from overseas, but our children have the same bombardment and experience the fear and uncertainty that we do, except they are not able to rationalize and say to themselves that maybe this is just exaggerated, or maybe it's only mom or dad's perception of what's going on, and that's not the actual reality. And especially if they get to school like this, where it is just reinforced the whole time that it is dangerous to be with people, it's dangerous to be close to people. And the result is that all this fragmented information that they are picking up just reinforces for them that there is fear lurking in every corner. Even the wearing of masks fills them subconsciously with constant fear that actually there's something unseen and dangerous lurking around every corner. And then, of course, they've had to deal with all the changes that have gone on. They've had to deal with mom and dad working from home for the first time, or they've had to deal with them being at home and not at school, and mom and dad maybe chatting about the possibilities of losing jobs and all of that type of thing. So they've seen very real change in their life. And that just brings me back to the fact that we need to be reminding our children and ourselves that God does not change. So in Malachi 3 verse 6, it says to us, "For I, the Lord, do not change. Therefore you, O children of Israel, of Jacob, are not consumed." And that's just something powerful. In Psalm 125, it says, "Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion. It cannot be moved. It abides forever. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people, both now and forevermore." And it just reminded me that right back in Genesis, God promised us that he puts the lights in the expanse of the heavens to divide the day from night, and let them be there for signs and seasons and for days and years. So the point that I would like to make is that the hills and the seasons remain constant, that those things do not change. So that being outside reminds us that actually God is in control, that no matter what the chaos is in the world, that God has still got order, that his timing still exists, and that we are part of all of that, that he is greater than what we experience on our day-to-day basis. And with that, just to be reminded that it is scientifically proven that green plants and green vistas actually reduce stress in even highly stressed people. So during this time of COVID-19, it is even more important that we compensate for dips in our physical, psychological, emotional well-being, because all of that actually builds our immune system. So I'm hoping today, when we have a look at how important it is to be outside, that we just remember that everything is there for a reason. And God's nature is there to remind us that he is in control. Now, forest kindergarten is a preschool movement that started in Scandinavian countries, and it has a huge following in Europe as well. Now, this is just to give you some background as to where outdoor classroom ideas came from and how far they have developed in some ways. These are preschools who literally spend every day in a forest near their home, or near where they live. And they spend time there learning, exploring, even doing such things as sharpening knives with blades from the age of 3 upwards, from making their own fires, and all of that type of thing. Now, I don't want anybody to panic. That's not what I'm suggesting. So we're not about to start a small group of arsonists at school. What I'm suggesting is that we're not saying goodbye to our classrooms, but we are simply opening them up. Now, there's no such thing as bad weather. There's only bad clothing. So even the weather shouldn't put us off going outside. Although obviously we are blessed in South Africa to be in much more sunny weather and much more temperate climates than there are overseas. But our connection with nature is so important that we should really be embracing any time that we can spend outside. And if you go and have a look at forest kindergartens, you'll see them sitting outside in the snow, playing in water and rain and all that type of thing. But I just think it's important to recognize that the nature is so important, because there is actually such a thing as a nature deficit disorder that can actually lead to a lack of developing of the senses, difficulties with paying attention, and with emotional and physical illness even. And in the UK, 75% of UK kids, they have found, spend less time outside than what prison inmates do. So that's a little bit of a scary statistic to make. So when we plan outside time, before we plan outdoor time, we should try and optimize as much as possible how much goodness we get out of that time. So in South Africa, we are fortunate that a lot of the time our kids do play barefoot, but playing barefoot outside and feeling the texture of the grass, allowing their bodies to actually release pent-up electrical energy through the earthing of their feet on the ground, is all good for health. And the more kids play outside, the more they want to. Outdoor learning actually has been proven to improve behavior. It gives the kids the space to move and reduces stress, especially for those kids that find it stressful to be told to sit at a desk or at a chair for extended periods of time, and even to be given an orchestrated activity to do for an extended period of time. Being frustrated with those things is actually normal development in children of this age, even up to the age of 7 and 8. And I think most of us would find that our kids need more play than what they get. And that's why it's been so exciting to hear some of the other speakers talking about how important play is, and how play is learning, and how that is the essence of what we need to do. So that has been really good to hear. Right. There's another very big benefit about planning outdoor time, and this is from an outdoor day that we did last time, 2 years ago actually, that was incorporated also with Garden World doing a gardening demonstration with schools, so we got involved with that too. And the extra huge benefit that I wanted to point out is that it actually recharges the teachers' batteries. So we get a chance just to look up to the sky, to feel God's sun on our skin, to laugh a little at the kids, to enjoy being outside again, and to be a little bit less focused in getting through our content and getting through the syllabus, and a little bit more in tune with what's going on around us. So that's really important. But to really appreciate how important the outdoors is, I'm going to include just a little bit about looking at our senses and how important our senses are in our development and in our learning. Now, we all know that we've got our 5 senses of hearing and seeing and touch and smell and taste. And I would like you just to take a moment now where you are, just to quieten yourself and just listen for a second and see how many different noises you can notice. Just maybe tick them off on your fingers as you hear them. So if you hear some things, just quickly take a count of three or 4 things, or however many you hear, and maybe just put the number into the chat box as well. Right. Now I want you to imagine concentrating on the smallest sounds that you can hear around you right now, wherever you're sitting, if you also had to be concentrating on keeping yourself upright on the chair, if you were concentrating on balancing and the whole time you felt like you were possibly going to be falling off and you were focusing on the balancing part, it would be much more difficult to actually hear anything that was going on around us. So the balance and the movement is part of our near senses, and the near senses are our inner senses, and those are our senses of proprioception and your vestibular system. Now, remember when we started, I started with doing that exercise of just rubbing the ears, because your vestibular system is housed in your ears, so that's where your balance center of your body is, and that just helps to balance it. But that vestibular sense within you and your proprioception of movement and balance is so vital to learning, because any information that we get from around us, we feed to our brains. So we have to take that information, and we take what we hear and what we see and what we feel, and that we internalize that, and we take our proprioception and our vestibular sense, and we feed that information through our body, through our nerve pathways, to our brains, where our brains make sense of what is going on around us. It helps us to understand our environment, and it helps us to understand how we fit in that environment. So it's actually very important that we know where our place in space is. Right, so I see there's been a number of people that have heard things around them from 5 to 4. That's great. And all of that hearing is so important to our learning, and it's happening all the time without us even always being aware of it. Right, so you might want to know, how are we going to do that? I just want to touch on quickly before I move on to the next slide, is that movement is key. If you ever look at this slide quickly, movement makes up our vestibular system. Movement develops our proprioception skills. And if you ever look at this skill, this side, you can see what these kids are doing. They are jumping on a trampoline, they're rolling down a hill, spinning. All of those things helps develop that vestibular system and that proprioception. It gives the child a sense of confidence. The more they can do, the more they feel they can do it. So our entire sensory system actually develops from movement, from conception onwards. Okay, so everything from conception onwards is an active process. All our development is based on active movement, even from in utero. When that little baby is inside the mommy's uterus, and it starts moving within the amniotic fluid. While that's happening, there are neurons and neural pathways being laid, and the hemispheres of the brain developing, and the connections between the two hemispheres developing. So that is why movement is so vital and so important. Of course, the movement actually helps develop all our areas of learning. So it helps our language. It forms the foundation of language, where children start to understand what it means to be behind, on, under, on top of, in front of, next to. So they start to understand language. It develops the mathematical principles of time, space, distance, how I relate to myself compared to something else. So all of that helps the child to understand where they fit in space. And by spinning around, running, climbing, jumping over things, they are making judgment all the time using all their senses. So they're using their eyes to see how far is that log away from where I am, how far do I need to lift my legs in order to get over it, and they run and jump and get over that using the proprioception and the vestibular system to give them the information that they need. And in actual fact, with Dr. Melody de Jager, she actually says that all our learning, our success in learning, comes back to being very sure of where we fit in space. So that's why movement is so important. And of course, this kind of movement can't be done in a classroom. It needs to be done outside of classroom. Right, now you might be wondering, how on earth do we do all of this? Well, luckily there's something called Outdoor Classroom Day. Okay, and the Outdoor Classroom Day movement. So there's a movement that is worldwide, an international movement, and they go and establish days or choose days throughout the year where people around the world join up and say, we will teach outside for the day. So the good news for you is that one is coming up soon on the 5th of November. So you can actually go onto their site, outdoorclassroomday.co.za, and register your school or just your class on there if you just want to do it just with your class. And they just do that to keep a track of how many people are getting into the outdoor classroom idea. So you can register on there and join us this year. I've registered our grade ones, so they'll be up and doing that on the 5th of November. But I would like to challenge all of us, and myself included, because even though I'm passionate about this, it's so easy to forget about just making the time and making the effort to get outside. So my challenge is that we would all get into a place where we start doing an outdoor classroom day or an outdoor lesson or introduce new topics once a week. Imagine if we could do one maths, one language, one life skills lesson a week outside. I think it would just give so much more scope and so much more excitement to the children's learning. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Now, if that is all sounding too daunting, I'm going to chat through some ideas of what we can do. The ideal day should first of all, plan to be sort of 1 to 3 hours of outside if you can't do a whole day. So a whole day is great, but if that's a little bit daunting, plan for at least 1 to 3 hours outside for the entire day. Don't forget hats and sunblock and all of that kind of thing. Right. And then the day ideally needs to be made up of directed play and directed activity, like jumping forward on maths plates. You can see in the slide over there, they've got plates counting in tens, obviously age appropriate for your children, and jumping forward or throwing the beanbag onto them, hopscotch jumping in numbers in order, jumping forwards, jumping backwards, and other things. They've got their bullseye idea down there to throw beanbags through different numbers. So all of those directed activities are also are vital, that they must form part of your day, part of your learning. And in fact, the learning can even just be made up of something as simple as taking out your normal interest table that you have that's inside, taking it outside and sitting around outside and chatting about it. So any form of directed play. But it's also important to actually have some time of undirected play, some non-directed activity time, where the children explore and interact with their teacher and come and show their teacher anything that they might find exciting. You can also just have inquiry-based areas set up where children can get involved and experiment with stuff. I just want to, when you look at this picture over here, you'll see two pictures of the kids in school uniforms there. That's taken at the King's School, West Rand. And just to encourage you that during this time of COVID regulations, that it's still so important for kids to play. So you'll see that those kids there are obviously during COVID time and they've all got their masks on. But what we've done in our playground is we've taken them to a grassy hill. The bottom right-hand picture there, you can see we took them to a grassy hill. We actually had to show some of the kids how to roll down the hill. I didn't demonstrate myself. I got somebody to do it. But since we've shown them how to roll down that hill, they are having a whale of a time just rolling down there, because obviously now during this time they are not supposed to be on the apparatus and can't be touching all our apparatus. So they are rolling down the hill there. The boys at the top there are racing down next to the fence. They've got a game that they are doing where they're racing the cars that drive past the school. That's why there's no car in that picture, because obviously the boys lose every time. But they really enjoy it. And I really think it's imperative that we allow as much normality as possible in their interaction and in their playtime, just for them to feel that there's some semblance of normal in their lives, and there's some semblance of what they were used to doing and what they actually come to school to do. Okay, these are the bigger kids, grade 1s and 2s. So they are not having as much fun as the grade R's, they think. So they enjoy their playtime, absolutely. And then I'm going to just move on and talk through some ideas maybe that we've got, that I've thought of and come up with and researched and looked at, as to how to best be able to incorporate stuff in an outdoor day. What can we do to actually make sure the children are learning while they are outside? So obviously creativity is key to to all of these types of things and to your outdoor day. So I've just got 3 pictures there, but I'm going to talk through a few other things as well that might be fun to do. So a way to introduce it might be to have a nature dress-up day, to make nature crowns. They can wear and make butterfly wings or animal masks and come to school dressed like that. They can have nature crowns out of flowers and things like that, or a garland around their necks, and just to be in touch with nature and to realize that nature is important and that they're going to be spending some time outside. Another nice idea was view from my window. So what you do with that is from within the classroom, you get the children to stand on their desks or to stand on a chair and to look outside the class window and see what can they see, to notice the differences that are changing week by week. And you could even do it for each day for a week, or you could do it one day a week for a few weeks in a row. A very nice idea there is, if you can see a tree from somewhere within your classroom, is to be able to look and see the changes of that tree every day. And then to use that tree, go outside, look at the tree, take some bark rubbings, talk about the tree, come back inside and Google, what tree could this be? Is it indigenous? Isn't it? What does that mean? What animals would live in a tree like that? What lives under the bark? And use that tree as a whole theme that you can look at to get the children to be aware of the nature around them. So I quite like that idea. Then even things like making a pinwheel to take outside on a windy day that they can hold up and see how fast it spins, and just measure the wind speed with that. Going out and lying on the grass and looking at the clouds. The teacher can take some photos of the clouds as well to look at later on in class. Let the children see, can they see different pictures in the clouds, and let them do that. Right, then if you have a look at the pictures there's designing a face using sticks and twigs and flowers and hair for the grass. There's the idea of painting some stones, and you can either paint faces on the stones, or you can paint like they've got there with the beetles and stripes and play like a noughts and crosses kind of game. Filling up some paper to do art outside with watercolors. So all of that type of thing is just an extra bit of fun that you can do. There's another idea of just taking out your normal school stuff. So taking out your maths manipulatives, your blocks and whatever you use, taking them outside to be played with, and you'll see how differently they get played with and how differently the children interact while they're doing that. Taking out books and puppets and putting them under a tree for children to look at and play with. So those are just some very simple ideas. But for those of you who might want to really run with a project, a wonderful thing to do would be to plan a sensory garden or a sensory walk with places for vestibular and proprioception development. So over here, I've just got some ideas that teachers have done in their school grounds. And it can be very simple. The one where you can see the 2 teachers standing at the end, they've just blocked off a little place and put all different textured things on a long walk there with some water and even some petals in the water at the end. For the kids to walk from the one side to the other over rough, smooth grass, sand, stones, pebbles, leaves, and to walk over all of those things and into the water at the end, which is quite fun. The picture with the 2 little girls, that is a picture of just building what they call a sensory garden tower. So they've piled up different pots and they've planted different things in those pots all the way from the top down. There are vegetables that they can eat, herbs, fragrant things like lavender and stuff growing in there that the children can smell as they go past, or that they can even just pick off a piece and chew on and taste. So that's a really good sensory thing to have in a garden. Then you'll see over there we're climbing up the tires. That's just using, if you've got tires or you know of people who've got tires lying around that you paint, and to build up a wall that people can climb up and down in the garden. Of course, it also just develops just their proprioception and their judgment of height, their judgment of space, their strength of climbing up and down. They'll be going faster up and down there than you'd like, I'm sure, but that's all part of it. Right, another idea here is just including water fun in that. It can be as simple as just providing water outside that they can play with. And at the top there you can see just putting 2 buckets in the tires and having some things there that they can play with. Now, this is also an important part of the whole thing, is to just have things around that the kids can play with and do what they want. So at the top there you can see they've got just some poles, some tires, some crates, and some string and some rope. Underneath it as well, maybe an old piece of plastic or tarpaulin that they can make something of that they want to do. The top corner by the fence, they've just got an old creepy crawly hose that the kids have put through the fence there, and they're talking to each other through that long telephone so they can hear each other through that. And at the bottom again, some tires. I want to say also, look around where your school is situated. The King's School West End is lucky enough to be close to the Botanical Garden, so we can plan to go there for outings when we're allowed to do outings again. But even if you have a park or something close to your school that you can look at for next year, so just go and spend a day somewhere close to your school where they can learn a little bit more about where they live, what is around them. If you don't have an area, a park or something that you can go in, then just use your school grounds. Even if it's a dusty school ground, let the kids walk in the dust. Have a fun activity afterwards of washing feet and that type of thing. But try and teach them about their environment. So obviously at the Botanical Gardens, we're fortunate enough to have the black eagles there that they can learn about. And we can, even just wherever you are, get your kids to listen to birdsong and to just become aware of that. Another idea that we did one year at school was doing a scavenger hunt with a sticky nature bracelet. So to put on a thick piece of masking tape, but with a sticky side sticking up, and then you give them a list of things to go and find. Something green, something rough, something smooth, something brown, something hard, and they walk around and stick things onto those bracelets. And I just love this picture when you look at that little boy examining something he's got there that he wants to put onto his bracelet. And you look at his bracelet with all the things he's got on there. I think he's got sand and stones and all types of things on there. And then you look at the girls' bracelets that have got little flowers and little leaves all put symmetrically next to each other and in a little pattern. And the 2 girls at the top, they're just comparing bracelets. But I'm just going to include, just to end off with, is just maybe just some takeaways that you could incorporate if you want to try this year on the 5th of November, don't forget. And just some lessons that could be done outside. So the first one that I'm looking at here is body image. And just maybe allowing children to work in pairs, have them position themselves where they can see their own shadow falling onto cement somewhere, or onto the corridor, or even onto a big piece of paper. If you've got a piece of paper and laid it in front of them, and they stand so that their shadow can fall onto that. And then having their friend trace around their shadow. And as they're tracing it, maybe just to say head, shoulders, neck. So they're just reinforcing those words. Another idea is to get the child, before the friend starts tracing him, get him, as he holds his body out, to trace with his own hand around his body, so the friend can see where to go, and then the friend to trace him. So he's also just using his entire body to do that, and crossing his midline to do that. That bottom picture with all the different body shapes there, you can see they just got the child to stand with his hands at his side at different times in the day, and then trace the shadow to show them how the sun changes its position in relation to us as we stand, and how the different shadows fall. And then of course you can turn that into a bit more of an art activity later on, where you use different animals there. You can see they've used dinosaurs, and also position them so that you can trace around the shadow to make it extra exciting. Right, and then for a maths number concept, is just to draw number lines from 0 to 10 on the corridor outside your classroom or somewhere where you've got a space, draw them with chalk. And then, of course, get the kids to jump forwards to 10, backwards from a certain number, jump to a certain number, or start on a certain number and jump from 5 to 9, jump onto a number and say what comes before that number, what comes after that number. Another idea that's there is to draw big numbers on the ground and get the kids to walk in those numbers in a numerical sequence. So mix up all the numbers and then see if they can find the numbers, go from number to number in the correct numerical sequence, and get them to walk on it in the correct writing direction. So walk the 3 correctly, walk the 5 exactly how it starts. And then you'll see there's 2 pictures there on cardboard. And that's just to reinforce and to develop the number concept, where they do a number 1, they find something in nature that's 1, they find 2, they find 3, and you can do different cards like that with the different numbers up to 5 or from 6 to 10 or whatever. Right, and then phonics and letter recognition and formation. And I think we've all done big letter formation and then at the end despaired that the kids are still starting in the wrong place. But there's some other ideas we can do outside with that, and I was thinking about the alphabet. At King's School we do an alphabet rap that started when we did Thrace years ago as our phonics, and the rap is worked out into a musical sequence that helps to stick into the kids' mind, and it repeats the letters, so you go forward and backwards the whole time. So it will start A, B, A, B, C, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, H, I, J. So you can see how it reinforces, it goes back the whole time. So I had a thought of writing the whole alphabet out on the ground and letting the kids jump forwards and then backwards when it goes backwards. And of course, if they're doing the phonetic alphabet, then they're going A, B, A, B, K, A, B, K, D, F, G. And they're going forwards and backwards and then on to the next section. But however you say the alphabet and let them jump with that. And then, of course, using squirter bottles or even their own cold drink bottles just to squirt and to squirt around the letter in the correct way. So they squirt the letters away as they're going. Painting letters onto a wall with a paintbrush and water that they can see. And then just the picture there with the milk bottles is just with a letter that you're teaching there and a hole cut out, and they find something that starts with that letter. So there's just a few little phonics ideas as well. Right, but it can just be simple. It can be as simple as drawing lines on the floor for them to follow, giving them some instructions, twirl, touch your toes, etc. And remember that spatial awareness is paramount. That is most important. So I've got a little video I'm just going to show you. I'm sure you've done similar things, but this just looks so cute. There's no sound with it, so you can just watch. And it's just interesting to see how some of the little guys just really still battling to get their position and to work out how to do it. Especially this little guy wouldn't leave his ball alone. But while you're watching this, and just as I carry on, if you've got any questions so long, you're welcome to start typing them in the chat. And I just want to leave you with some compelling evidence here. If you have a look over here, you'll just see that it is so important, because the evidence that we have, and one of the reports is by the Children and Nature Network. I'm just going to read that off my notes here. The Children and Nature Network, with participants in 60 different countries, that have found the following. They have found that more outdoor learning leads to lower rates of disease and reduces anxiety and depression. But the outdoor learning lets children engage more fully in their schoolwork. They found that 88% of children are more engaged when learning outside. 68% are better able to concentrate. And this one, 65% are better behaved. Outdoor learning school actually, by the end, raised test results by an overall average of 27%. So it improves personal development and supports a sense of self, spatial awareness, and independence. I think we'd all agree that fidgeting is one of the bigger things in the classroom that we fight against all day. But the American president of the Forest Kindergarten Association says children cannot bounce off walls when we remove the walls. So I just want you to be reminded that God has designed and equipped us with such a special body that is wired for learning through our senses to make sense of the world around us. Our brain, as amazing as it is, depends on the information that our senses give it. It can't make its own information, so it needs our near and our far senses to work together. So I hope that some of that has inspired you. There are some other challenging ideas that we can look at as well. One of them is a link I will provide that you can go and look at a school in New Zealand, in Auckland actually, that has got a no rules recess. And there's a really good little 12-minute video there to just challenge us all as to see how can we provide opportunities for our kids to grow in confidence. I hope that what I've shared with you fills you with excitement. I hope I'll see lots of you doing the outdoor classroom day, and to just enjoy it. Yeah, perhaps you can share pictures of your outdoor classroom day to ACSI, and they can post it on their website as well. So that'll be really good to see. Thanks so much, Kathy, for that time. I don't know if you've got any questions. I'm going to stop sharing.
Robyn, that was absolutely brilliant. And you know what? A very strange thing has happened to me today. I actually feel very nostalgic after listening to your talk, because I go back many, many seasons when I was at school. And the only clear memories that I have of school is when we were outside doing outside activities.
Yes, absolutely.
Going on camps, being challenged on all kinds of obstacle courses, just brings back all those kind of memories. So let's create those memories for our children. And I also think that we have a generation of parents that are overprotective. And how many times I fought with parents because they don't want their children to take their shoes off. And I think we'll be dealing with a hell of a lot fewer sensory issues if we had our kids out there playing without shoes on, rolling, as you say. So that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Are there any questions that anybody has? There is one question here in the question and answer box. I'm going to just bring it up. Oh, just Michaela Whiteboard says, I love these outdoor activities ideas. Can you please send the link for the outdoor classroom day? I'm absolutely sure that Robyn is going to share her presentation with us. And
yes, I will.
So we will be putting it up on our website within the next week, as Sean said. Any other questions that anybody has? No, doesn't look like it. Robyn, thank you. I know you felt stretched doing this, but you were an absolute natural at what you did. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kath. I must say it's easier talking when I can see all the audience and get some feedback from them, but looking at myself on the screen and not knowing where to look is a little nerve-wracking. But thanks for the experience.
I fully understand your pain. It really is, but thank you. And people are just sending through messages all the time thanking you for an amazing presentation and for sharing these ideas.
Thanks.
So
maybe I'll also just share. I see somebody did say on there about the Phonics wrap is really cool. It is something that we've got from Thras, so I'll just have a look out if it's possible that I'm allowed to share that. Maybe I can share that as well, because it is a cool wrap for the kids to do.
Very. Okay. Thank you so much for being with us in this session, and really appreciate you, Robyn. I owe you.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay,
right.
bye.
Thank you, bye.